from the Epic Times. Maine secretary says voters may cast ballots for Trump without knowing if it will count. I mean, that's it right there. The Maine Superior Court ordered that the Secretary of State has to wait for the Supreme Court to respond as to whether or not Trump can be removed before taking him off. So she says, okay, then people may vote for him. And if the Supreme Court says he can be removed, their votes are disqualified, despite having already been cast. They're not just talking about removing Trump from the ballot anymore. They're talking about retroactively removing votes for him. Now, understand what this means. There are many states, Colorado, whatever, they've lost. It's like, we want to remove Trump. No, you can't do that. If the Supreme Court does rule, that is up to the states to decide. Maybe SCOTUS doesn't come out and say Trump can be removed. They say, narrow ruling, it is up to the states to determine their elections. Have a nice day. Maine instantly then says all Trump votes are hereby disqualified. Colorado says all Trump votes are hereby disqualified, and they can just do it. They are going to retroactively remove Trump from the election.
But then the Florida would remove Biden. Texas would remove Biden.
Yes.
And that would be pointless. Like it would just
be
the Supreme Court can't allow that. It would be pointless in that it would create pointless we wouldn't have a federation anymore.
Yes,
so
you're correct.
The Supreme Court kind of has no choice but to uphold the Constitution on this one.
And the Constitution says state legislatures decide how their elections are run.
Yep. Maybe the state Congresses, not state
the state legislature.
Not state governor.
They already allowed that to happen this past
But how
election.
things run and if they run are different stories. You can't remove candidates and say that that's actually happening legit. That's not a legitimate thing.
Bro, they're protecting democracy, bro.
It's, I mean,
I don't know what they can or can't do because there's a lot of stuff that I would have said they can't do that they've already done.
Yeah, you can't infringe the right to keep and bear arms, right?
You know?
Right.
Man, that one's been infringed quite a bit.
Yeah, a lot.
DC, it's funny, it's federal jurisdiction of all places to be beholden to the Constitution, and you can't have guns there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The Constitution is just a piece of paper as long as people don't believe in it. And if the people don't actually want to hold Joe Biden accountable for allowing the kind of illegal immigration that he's allowed, then what's going to happen is Governor Abbott will stand up to the federal government as long as he thinks he can. The federal government might actually do something. Maybe there will be violence. And if the people don't support the idea that Texas was right, the American people are not going to say, they're going to say, no, you were wrong and blah, blah. But if the majority of people say Texas is right, it doesn't matter what the feds think because most people are going, in the court of public opinion, that's what's actually going to, at the end of the day, matter the most. But I don't think that most people feel that way. I think most people are going to side with the government because most people are stupid.
When you say the government, what do you mean? The federal government.
Most people don't even know what the Constitution says, let alone what the laws are of what the Supreme Court can and can't do. That's the problem. They have no idea what is going on. I mean, Gen Z, I literally filmed a video of, what are the 5 rights protected in the First Amendment? And they cannot tell you. They couldn't tell me what the Second Amendment, Third Amendment, any of the amendments were, how many amendments were in the Bill of Rights, and that they want to change the Constitution because it's a living and breathing Constitution. So when it comes to an issue like this in Maine, no, it's not a living and breathing Constitution at all. But the problem of this in Maine is Americans will not bat their eye and they will think that this is legal and that the federal government can do whatever they want. And sure, Trump's off the ballot. What happens then? Like, people will fall for it and they will think it's legal and okay when it's not.
That sounds very black-pilled. Do you find yourself without hope?
No, because I think there is hope. I think there is if people continue to press in and have conversations and, rebuke this kind of stuff. Because, if Maine does this, to your point, I think Texas should be like, all right, we're removing Biden. And same with Florida, and fight fire with fire.
So you do a lot of men on the street stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to ask particularly about when you ask people about when they say they are voting for, man, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. It was about particularly men on the street stuff here. I mean, I'm going to see if I can remember it. Pardon me. Totally derailed it there. But I totally forgot what I was going to say. Pardon me, guys. My bad.
That's it.
That's right. I love you.
Well, everyone's going to remain totally silent for the next several minutes until Serge can figure out.
Wait, I will say though about man on the street stuff is like I kid you not, I have had students tell me they want to take away the Second Amendment entirely.
Right.
That U.S. citizens have no right to have an AR, and I'm like, well, what is that? assault rifle. It's not an assault rifle. It stands for Armalite, for everyone who doesn't know that. And that's the craziest part. Oh, what are the 5 rights protected in the First Amendment? They can't even tell me. It's speech, assembly, petition, religion. They have no idea the rights that they have, and that what we're doing is to protect their rights, and they would do anything to get rid of them.
Well, my response is, if I talk to someone and they said, I want to get rid of the Second Amendment, I'll be like, okay, here's my idea. You want to live that way? Deal. So you don't get a First Amendment, you don't get a Second Amendment, and then I want to live my way, so I do get it. All right.
Why not?
All right.
Solution solved.
Problem solved. You can live however you want to live. Go live that way.
It's real important that we teach kids about the Constitution. That's like indoctrinatingly important.
They have stopped doing that, though.
That's so shocking. Like, that's the primary school system's primary function, I would
They've
think. Was
failed.
Make people understand the way the government works.
Absolutely not.
That is not
Even
the case.
Maybe math and that.
Collegiate history classes are focusing now more on critical race theory, having race-based history, than they are U.S. history. Same thing, go back in middle school, government classes. They're not teaching the basics of our government anymore.
Most people don't know that the federal government is not, or that our government is not a direct democracy. Most people don't know. Actually, it's as basic as this. Most people assume that they're not free. What I mean is, most people assume that they have to ask for permission to do things. That's the general assumption of the average American. When someone sees something they don't like, the first thing they say is, that can't be legal. He can't be allowed to do that. You hear it constantly.
I used to see this word permit on street signs when I was like 9 and 6. I'd see doing this is permitted. And I'm like, well, what does that word mean? I'm not allowed to do it? Because why would I need a sign to tell me I'm allowed to do something?
So that's
I'm allowed to do it.
What else am I not allowed to do?
That's how badly people understand, or how poorly people understand the very fundamental basics of American society. You are free. That means you don't have to ask permission to do shit. And they don't even get that. Straight up, the gut instinct from most people is not that they're free. It's that they gotta ask someone if they can. They're looking for permission. So if you're starting with people don't even understand that they're free, then that means that the rights that are protected in the Constitution, they don't conceptualize themselves as already having. They don't believe they have the right to free expression. They believe that the government gives it to them. They believe they have to have permission. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be an American. And it is intentional that people see things this way. And the evidence is in the results.
I get the idea that, you can say God gave us our rights. I get it. But if you don't have guns and a forcible, strong border to keep out idiots that are going to come enslave you, you don't have your rights. So you need to protect your rights with force of arms. But the concept that you always had them anyway is kind of like a tongue-in-cheek Ben Franklin thing. I get it.
You do have them. It's just they can be infringed. So absolutely, you need vigilance and strength to defend your rights. The Constitution exists because the Founding Fathers knew your inalienable God-given rights could be infringed upon. And so they said, okay, government can't do this. Funny thing is, it's a piece of paper. And, Michael Malice points out that it's effectively meaningless. People get mad about it. But the reality is, we didn't have free speech the way we know it today 50 years ago. You couldn't swear. It was an obscenity. You can get arrested for swearing. George Carlin got arrested for a comedy routine where he said swear words. And so, that was effectively a hate speech law. This is what I call the left reactionary. Woke is reactionary. They like to say the right is reactionary. And what reactionary refers to is the French Revolution. You had the left and the right. The reactionaries were people who didn't want the fall of the monarchy. They were, traditionalists, right wing. So reactionary means it typically refers to people who want things to go back to the way they were. This is what the left is. They want race-based law, pre-civil rights era. They want obscenity laws, pre-free speech. They want us to go back in time to the 1940s and 1950s, back to the way things used to be. Except, of course, for women in the workplace. That, it's not absolute. But they're absolutely reactionary as it pertains to race and and other policies like this.
So is that like we have a new world order in this internet-based economy, and that we're changing into whatever we want it to be, which it could be an American republic-based global republic, basically, where we have like localized governments, but then there's this reaction to it, which is like, no, make sure it stays communist and take away rights. We need to make it more amenable to corporate governance. We need to make sure that you don't step out of line with your corporate.
They don't
lord.
want decentralization. They want centralization.
You know, that guy, what's his name?
Yuval Noah Harari.
That's a Yuval Noah Harari. I just heard a speech that he was doing, I guess from Davos or whatever. And he's saying things like, that we don't actually have the right to, we don't have any rights at all. They're all just fictions. And everything essentially that society does is a fiction. It's all a game that we essentially agree to play. That's what society basically is. We all agree to play by kind of the same rules. And his argument that there are no actual rights, that essentially there's nothing that you have a right to at all, it actually is true, because rights are just concepts that we create. So if you don't have any rights that are natural, that's what the government is for, is to protect individuals. If it's not doing that, then there's no value in having the government. So it doesn't matter if you want to have an international order, or if you want to have I'm totally spacing on where my point was.
I get it.
You did it.
I get it, man. It happens.
He did it to me.
Oh no!
If he's saying that we're
not
just
enough coffee today, huh?
we're just playing a game, that society is just a game of where we're all kind of accepting this, then I would counter with when an armed gunman walks into a room and guns down 6 people. Were they all playing that game? No, we need rights to protect our ability to defend against that.
But the rights are the thing that we do create in order to protect against that. The rights are their social construct.
Protect against the game getting hijacked?
No, against the real death that happens when someone comes in and decides to not play the game, because the game is actually we get along, we all manage to live together without killing each other, without resorting to violence. That's the game. That's what society is.
Yeah, they talk a lot about civil authority at the World Economic Forum, and the world that's half of the dime. Like, the other side is very gruesome, and you need to protect yourself. That's these World Economic Forum dudes, man.
We used to have shared morality.
Mm-hmm.
It was believed that we all recognized certain ththings were right and certain things were wrong. Yeah. Most people did. Now you have the woke with no moral framework at all. I mean, this is it. Prager refers it. What does he call it? Cut stem, or what is it? I always forget this. Cut stem politics or whatever.
I don't know.
That a flower is beautiful. You cut it from its root. You can hold it in the air and it looks beautiful. Then eventually it dies. Mm. And what we are dealing with right now is the far left, ultra progressivists, have been detached from their roots for so long, they are withering.
Yeah, man, there's this like, I want to impose like morality on these people, but until you experience it and learn it for yourself, because I learn from like soldiers. I watch interviews with soldiers and it's like, whether you're watching a guy bleed out and die, whether he's on your side or the enemy side, you're still watching this human bleed out and die. We have rules of law of war to protect against melting human skin off with chemical war.
Yeah, but it's meaningless.
Weapons. Technically, until you witness it, and then you realize why we have those rules.
What does that rule mean?
You don't want someone to spend 20 hours melting and screaming. Like, you prefer not to. So
So by all means, enter a war where you say, we're going to fight by the rules. And the other side says, I will do anything in my power to destroy you. And guess who wins?
Hopefully the whole world unifies against that idiot that will do anything to create some sort of civility.
But I think we've already seen that in the U.S. I mean, the left has lost their morality basis entirely. Like, they're okay with killing children in the womb. They're okay with calling out Republicans and hating our election system and changing the Constitution. So where does their morality lie if it's not more like they are the immoral? And so how do you teach somebody something is immoral?
I don't think that personally that they actually are concerned with morality. I think that they're concerned with, trying to undo the liberal order that the United States has.
They're concerned with power.
Yeah. They want control.
The point isn't, I've talked about, like, my opinion is that they are not They don't believe in the Enlightenment. They believe that like you can speak things into existence. That's why they refuse to, that's why they say, oh, if you call a trans woman a woman, she's actually a woman. Or if you call a trans man a man, they're actually a man. They believe that words have power. They don't believe that you can actually come in contact with reality because everybody's reality is different and stuff. And that's really foreign to the foundational ideas that liberalism is based on. The idea that you can come into contact with reality is the foundation for what is a reasonable person. And the idea of a reasonable person is all over our law. If you look at the way that laws are written, they constantly say what a reasonable person would say, or that you come to a reasonable person.
But there's no reasonable people anymore.
Yeah, if you can't agree on what a man or a woman is, if you've got Supreme Court justices that refuse to acknowledge to say what a woman is, that will say, I don't know what a woman is, or I can't define a woman, then you can't expect that person to be able to say what a reasonable person would think. And that literally, this is serious stuff. This is actually tearing at the foundations of all of our laws, of all of the structure of our whole society, the entire thing. So,
when you're talking about people lack of morality in the government, in the federal momentum at the moment, and that you were suggesting that their focus is untethering or unwinding the liberal economic order to create this new world order. What I see is the way we unwind it is the new world order. So if we use corruptive adaptivity, if we're willing to stomp out political opponents unethically, illegally, to get this thing, that's what the new thing is going to be. The method is the meaning.
The ends do not justify the means because you never meet the ends. The far left makes this argument that the ends justify the means. They say there's an evil dictator in charge, so we must do everything by any means necessary to stop him. Congratulations. How do you now defend your glorious new revolution? By any means necessary. Of course. Great. You're the dictator. That's literally the theme of Will of the People, the song that we released 3 years ago. These people will claim they're fighting for justice, and so their tactics are justified. Their diversity of tactics. But don't worry. When we take over, we're going to put in a bunch of reforms to prevent the brutality. Then, once they take over, they say, well, yeah, but we didn't mean for the fascists. They're fascists. So the way Venezuela views it, the revolution's never ended. The fascist forces have always been trying to take back, and they're in desperate need of defense of the revolution. That's why they have to arrest people and lock them up.
The revolution's always unending. It's the logic of Herbert Marcuse. You have to shut down fascists. You can't let them talk. You have to shut them down at the level of conception of fascist ideas. You have to take control of the language so that way you cannot form fascist arguments.
Well, that's gone haywire with the Federal Reserve getting formed. Obviously, we are living in a fascist system. But what about communists? Because people are saying lately, like, did the McCarthy era not go far enough?
McCarthy did not go far enough.
I understand not shutting down the concept of communism. You need to understand it to watch out for it, to defeat it and circumvent it. You need to know what it is.
Which is why we have red-washed schools. Like, you don't hear about communism. You don't hear about the horrors of communism nearly as much as you should. There has been significantly more death due to communism because it was a system tried in so many different places and has had a much longer time that it was tried. But as a system, it caused more death than Nazism, because Nazism was, everybody ganged up on Nazism to stamp the Nazis out. And yet you hear more about Nazism. Everyone's aware of the 6 million Jews and however many gypsies were killed and all the people that died in the death camps in Nazi Germany. And people are aware that there were gulags in Soviet Russia, and they're aware that there was death in China, communist China, but they don't know how bad, and they don't know about like the real horrible stuff that went on in Eastern Europe. Like, Eastern Europe is where the real horror shows were when it came to
the Holodomor. That was
the Holodomor was that was one of them.
Holodomor, is that how you pronounce it? The Holodomor.
Holodomor. There's also that the Martyr Made has this podcast about, I forget what it's called, but it's about the horrors of a particular communist group, and I'm totally spacing on the name. If the chat knows, I'm sure the chat knows because they know Martyr Made's podcast. But it was about the things that the communists did. They were absolute monsters. And kids don't know this.
Because they didn't have cameras, like the way the Allies documented the Nazi camps and and Hitler kind of documented his own behavior for the world to see. But like in Soviet Russia, Stalin was like a mute. No one knew what he sounded like.
No, this is because of people that believe in socialism, so they didn't report things in the West.
Right.
It is an active intent to cover up the horrors. That's what red washing means. Yeah, William Durante was covering up the horrors that the Soviet Union was doing.
Walter.
Walter Durante. There's been plenty of people that were communists, believed in communism, and then because of that, they covered up terrible things that communists have done because they call them excesses and their attempts to produce the perfect society.
I love how Durante actually was like, "There's no need to actually investigate whether any of these things are actually happening."
God,
what?
Yeah, the New York Times.
You'd be shocked, man. It's wild.
I kid you not. There are students that I've talked to that tell me, well, communism just hasn't been implemented in the correct way yet. Or socialism hasn't, Cuba, Venezuela, whatever. It's just, it hasn't been done perfectly yet. If we just listened and implemented socialism and communist ideals, like it could work in America. And like that's how far it's gotten in campuses.
I remember my question regarding you talking to people on the street. When you speak to people, are they like, do they realize what is like how much like people always say people on the man on the street things, they only choose certain people that say dumb things. Mm-hmm. When you do this, do you chop very much material to make it? I'm not trying to out your guys for like what's the word, like unethical journalism, but how many people do you meet that are informed, that do know what's going on, versus how many people do you meet that are like, wow, you're almost like a lost cause? Like what's the ratio to that? Because that's what really matters to me.
Okay, I will honestly say Gen Z is very 50-50. And it also depends on the region, what school I'm going to. So I just did a video and I was at UCLA in Beverly Hills. 90%, I asked the question, is America racist? And I had almost every single person tell me, yes, America's racist systemically. You can't be racist against white people, like whatever it is. But then I go to a school like, I went to University of Arizona down in Tucson, and I asked just basic American-based questions, and they could actually answer American history questions. So it's very much, it depends on what school it is. It's very, very regional. And a lot of these kids are transplanters. So, the kids going to UCLA are from all over the place, but they chose that school for a purpose. Socialism or communism or capitalism, I mean, those videos are across the board. We do choose and use almost every single one of the answers we get. So when you see any of my clips, it's not because I picked that person and that person, I'm like, oh, that's going to go the most viral. I mean, I'll talk to our protesters and I'll talk to people inside of our events and genuinely try to get, what is Gen Z thinking? That's always my focus is, I want to show the world this is what Gen Z college students from across the world or across the nation actually think about these issues. And it is pretty split. I was at UCLA and I had a girl reach out to me and she was like, hey, like I was really scared to answer your questions, but I actually am a conservative and I feel like I can't speak out. So there are kids on these campuses that are educated and are informed, but the problem is they're facing so much censorship. They're facing cancel culture. They're facing, their college campuses, their professors absolutely hate them and their ideals. I mean, Harvard, free speech doesn't even exist at Harvard University anymore. And so these kids fear so much to speak out. I mean, nursing students having to learn abortions and having to get, not going to say it, but they're having to bow down to these oligarchs really that are controlling the universities. So they're so silent and they're so scared.
I have an idea. How about the parallel economy forces unify in a pledge to never hire, from this point forward, anyone with a degree from any of the major university systems?
Only because I support a road to redemption.
Especially the UC system.
100%.
I'm going to say this. Yeah.
Maybe like for 5 years.
No.
Because everybody can become...
Just don't go.
I don't even say for 5 years. I'm like, we can reassess when we reassess. Like if the UC system comes out and says like, long live America and flies the American flag big and bold and says now everyone's required to take a constitution test and all that stuff, I'd be like, oh, we're good. But right now, I'm thinking about these people you're bringing up. A conservative, what college was she at?
UCLA.
UCLA?
Yeah.
I would never hire her. And I think no company should hire her. I think if she ever steps foot in a building and says, look, I went to UCLA, get out. Like, you mean to tell me that you knew exactly what was going on and you were like, I'd love to have a degree from this institution? I mean, that's like, if you're some regular kid and you got a degree and you're like, honestly, I wasn't really following politics, I just wanted to do like, graphic design and stuff, I'd be like, okay. But if you're like, oh, I was a conservative the whole time and I didn't speak up, but I wanted a degree from UCLA, I'll be like, good luck getting a job in Hollywood. I wish you the best.
Oh, I mean, 80%, I would say, honestly, 70, 80% of college students that are conservative on college campuses that aren't speaking out, they're exactly like that. They are just living their lives. Like, I'll just get through college, I'll write the paper, I'll get the A. And they are willing to,
who are you trying to impress? The Hollywood pedophiles? No, I mean, like, you're going to UCLA to get a degree? Are you're trying to endear yourself to the Hollywood pedophiles? Well, I don't want to hire you.
Because their whole thing is, well, then how do I get a job? If they don't get the degree and they don't graduate and they don't get the grades and they don't just like silence themselves for 4 years, then where do they go and work?
Well, I can't speak. I can't speak for.
I dropped out.
I can't speak for jobs outside of media. I can tell you, I have not asked about anyone's college degree when hiring here at Timcast. And we have 42 employees, 42, a handful of contractors, so maybe like 37 or 38. But I've not once been like, and where did you graduate college from?
Oh, no, I agree. I think they should. College doesn't matter. In reality, it's a piece of paper. It's so meaningless where if you actually have a craft and you decide, I actually instead want to do this. We have the world's knowledge on our fingertips. You can learn anything. I don't see, like if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, I mean, I understand there are certain things you have to go to college for. But of course, this is why I'm saying parallel economy. I'm not. You don't need any legal requirements to work at a media company. You need to be good at what you do. So if you come to me, for instance, and say, I'd like to work at Timcast, and you're like, I just recently graduated from UCLA, I'd be like, I'm not going to hire you. Who are you trying to impress? Yeah. You're not trying to impress me. You want to impress me? Tell me you dropped out of school and figured it out on your own. Yeah. Look, I got to be honest. It's not just about the UC system and these corrupt colleges. It's about, in my experience, somebody who decides the path forward is to be told what to do by institutionalized learning facilities is not going to be as skilled or driven as someone who figured it out on their own.
They're not as critically thought. Like the internet or the college was good until about 1996. And then the internet supplanted the nature. Like you said, the information is now available. Unless you can go to college for like a conservatory if you want to study like acting for 4 years and you pay a bunch of money so that you get like 6 lead roles a year and you're surrounded by good actors and you get really good at it, or music or something like that. That's a different story. Like you said, being a doctor, you want to go somewhere where you can do the practice every day.
Well, there's legal requirements there. I can understand that. And you're not trying, and if you're going to set up your own practice or work for someone else, they expect you to have that qualification.
But people that haven't figured it out, that are still going through the motions, are not critical thinkers, not on the level that you need to really get your business ahead.
The hyperpolarization is too pronounced at this point. I mean, when Joy Reid, I love this. Joy Reid was debating the one of the people from Moms for Liberty, one of the women, and was asked about adult objects appearing in books. Joy Reid defended children having access to this, but the Joy Reid X account censored the word because the general public, which is primarily adults, should not see this word, but children should. When we're dealing with someone like that, okay, when you go to one of these major universities because you think you need a degree, I don't know who you're trying to impress because it ain't impressing me. Okay, now if you went to like some very Christian university or whatever, because they exist, or a private or one of these newer ones, they're anti-woke, and you explain, I went here for this reason, I'd be like, oh, wow, okay, that's cool. It's more valuable to me if someone came to me and said, I'm a video editor, and let's say I'm like, I need a video editor, and they came to me and said, here's a bunch of stuff I've made. I'd be like, wow, this is really cool stuff. Can you make more? Great, you're hired. There's no circumstance where I'm like, but hold on, I do like that video, but where did you go to school? That's a completely meaningless.
But tell me about your parents before I hire you.
That's the problem with the college degree system is because they graduate college with absolutely zero experience in the real world. They don't have critical thinking skills. They don't know how to think because they've been told their whole life what to think.
Yes.
That's the problem.
I'll give a shout out to Carter Banks, our music producer. I don't even know if he went to school or not. He just made a video where he was like, hey, hire me. And then a few months later, Ian was like, yo, check out this video. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a really good video. We should hire this guy.
Yes.
And then we did.
He will do more of that. And he certainly does.
So I think Gen Z should go and learn a craft. If you're passionate about something, 100%. Go master that craft, be really, really good at it, and then go do it.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.